Hey everybody, Ted Forbes here, and welcome back to The Art of Photography. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the road to greatness in photography and what that means. We cover a lot of very well-known and very talented photographers on this show, and that is by design because I want to talk about work that's inspiring to me and hopefully inspire you as a result of that as well. And the idea for this video came up yesterday. I released a video on Michael Kenna, and I'll link up to that at the end of this video if you haven't seen it. But I had several discussions going with people in comments and one via email, and I thought it was pretty interesting because we were talking about Kenna and how he's matured as an artist and how many years it really took him to get to where he is in his career, combined with the fact that Kenna's style is very minimalistic in nature. There's a lot of elements of high contrast, a lot of playing with the atmosphere, things like water, things like fog and mist. And I think because of those elements being so highly defined, and you could make the argument as being highly refined, that he is easily clonable, and there are a lot of Kenna clones out there. And what's interesting is, you know, when you look at Kenna's career and what he did as an artist in terms of paying dues, and I certainly think this is important because you're looking at somebody who started his career in the late 70s and was a printer for a long time, and he really wasn't known as a photographer in the fine art world until really the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s. And so that's a long time of paying dues and trying to figure out your style and how to refine things and make it your own. And as far as being easily clonable, I think that's certainly an element of flattery towards Kenna's work. People enjoy it to the fact to where they want to copy it. But cloning something is always just that. It's a copy of the original thing. And what's interesting is when you take photographers, and I want to look at a couple people in particular, you could look at Kenna even, and his early work, which we discussed yesterday. You see a lot of the stylistic elements that define Michael Kenna in that early work, but they've matured and they've refined, and it may look just like a slight difference because he was very talented to begin with, but they make Kenna who he is today, and it was a lot of years of refinement of those things, and Kenna, no question, has put a lot of hours in and worked very hard at his craft and in his style. It's not something that you can quickly watch a video and gain a couple things and learn overnight. And I want to look at a couple other photographers here too that I think's work is very interesting. The first person I want to look at, and I'll tell you who this is in a second, but if we look at this first image, this was done in the late 60s on 35mm. We have an image of two horses. There's other images from this set as well. There's the two twins, which, you know, you start to see influences here. There's Dean Arbus involved. There's a group of boys wearing masks, which is a great image as well. And in these early images, you see a less refined artist, somebody who's obviously very talented, and you see a lot of those early influences, particularly Arbus, I think, in a lot of these images. But you realize that later on, as we come into the 2000s, this is the work of Abelardo Morel, who is known now for camera obscura work, and among other things, he's a very talented photographer, has a wide range of skills that he is able to bring to the table. And there's a lot of maturity that's come in between these two sets of images, and I think that's the important part to realize. And I'll look at another photographer here too that is another favorite of mine. This early image, this was from 1986, and you have this kind of cinematic looking image of the young girl. Very different for a portrait. It has a cinema type quality to it. Brings to mind people like Cindy Sherman perhaps, or even Richard Prince in the contemporary art world. And then you zoom up another 10 years and you see this set from the same artist, which is a series of large format black and white images made in Lee, Massachusetts that were done on a crane. And the town, or the little scenes he was setting up, tell a story, and that cinematic quality starts to come in. And you zoom another 10 years and you see what he's known for now, and this is Gregory Crewdson, and how his style has evolved. Again, those early years, you see a heavy influence on his work from photographers he looked up to, and then this state of refinement that comes in the meantime, you know, culminating in what he does today. And I think that's really important to look at. And I think, you know, we're all aspire to be on this road to greatness. I am nowhere near achieving anything great in my own work, I don't think. But, you know, if you're doing this for popularity or fame or recognition, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. It's more of a refinement, and it's about enjoying what it is you do and enjoying what it is that drove you to be a photographer and create things in the first place. You know, and I'll close this out with this statement that people leave in comments from time to time, and you hear a lot of people quoting this, but It was said that Picasso once said that good artists borrow and great artists steal. And that actually wasn't Picasso, it was Steve Jobs quoting Picasso, and there's really actually no hard evidence that Picasso ever said that. He may have not. But it's, even for Steve Jobs, I think there's a lot that's left out with that statement. Yes, absolutely. I think the best of the best generally borrow, they generally have influences, they generally incorporate things into their own. But then it's that path that you get on, we've called it the dip before on here, to borrow from Seth Godin, but it's that path of experimentation, of trial and error, of seeing what works, of seeing what doesn't work. And that path is completely different from me than it would be for you and it is for somebody else, because it depends on who you are, what your personality is, how hard you work at it, natural talent, what your subject matter is. There's a lot of things that go into that equation and what that is. It's not something that you can just bestow on somebody the answer to. And even Steve Jobs using that quote, which was a wonderful quote when you put it in the context of where he said it, talking about operating systems. And I certainly think that if a computer salesman could ever be called an artist, Steve Jobs is the guy to be calling that. But Steve Jobs, even looking at his career, he didn't invent the iPhone right off the bat on day one. It was a refinement and a road to get there, and a road to bring his art influences into technology to do that. And that's what art is, and that's what creating is, and that's what inspiration is, and that's what the hard work results in. And so all that to say is that, we all have influences, we all are inspired by things, but it's that hard work in the middle that's really difficult. Anyway, I'm going to close it out there. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like it and share it with your friends. And as always, subscribe so you can see more videos as they come out, and always stay up with the latest and the greatest. Anyway, once again, guys, this has been another episode of The Art of Photography. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.